Hey, let's talk user stories real quick. It's come up 4 times today, so seems like it's a thing we should talk about. User stories aren't a thing you write, they're a thing you do. Atlassian did us no favors by calling an item in the backlog a user story. I get lots and lots of questions about how to write good user stories, or who should write user stories, or what template should we use for user stories. If you think user stories are a thing you write, or user stories are a thing you can type up on your keyboard, you're missing the point. The whole idea of stories is that they are told and that they are discussed. It's a technique for requirements by interview. So rather than our traditional way of writing requirements where we just think really hard, we write them down and we hand them to someone, the whole concept of stories is that you have human people talking with each other, discussing, modeling together, trying to come into a firm understanding of what it is we're trying to do here and why. The best teams write very little down. They do lots of note-taking, lots of maybe standing up at a whiteboard and sketching stuff up. But the actual act of capturing that is secondary. What gets added to the backlog early on is what's called the card of the 3 C's of user stories. So this is a commonly applied technique where you have card, conversation, and confirmation. The card aspect is meant to be just a placeholder, an avatar, a thing that is there to remind you when you get there what it is you're supposed to be doing and why. So who's supposed to write it? I don't know, whoever had the idea. What makes a good user story? Well, one that the team has understood. You've talked with the person that needs it. You understand the whys. You've really dug in. You can apply invest, and you should have a good definition of ready before you start building the thing. But it's the mental model and the understanding that makes it good. How do we confirm that we've done what we said we would have done? Well, that's where you can start looking at things like acceptance criteria, like specification by example, good test strategies, lots of good facilitation strategies to make sure that everybody can really confirm they understand it. But what you put in Jira is really there for one of 2 reasons. One, it's that card reminder. It's just there to help you remember when it's time to refine this thing as it bubbles up your backlog. Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about doing. 2, if you are in a regulated institution like I often work in, there are often policies that you must comply with that say we need to see what you moved into production and what it was tied to from some kind of a requirement standpoint. So in that case, we will then capture all of those artifacts and tie them to some kind of a record often in Jira to say, look, we really did have those conversations, but we want to do that in a low waste way. So we try to do good story techniques, but while we're at it, I take screenshots, I take pictures of my whiteboards, I will capture good specification by example tables. We will attach all that into Jira. I'm not doing it because Jira made me, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture it and attach it. So then we've got evidence. So I'm trying to do a low waste way of making sure that we have evidence of the requirements without having to write a detailed specification. But the story itself is the conversation. The card aspect of it is actually kind of the least important, but it's so easy to try to translate old behaviors to new. So we used to have a requirements document. Now we have user stories. That's just not how any of this works. It's a fundamental change in behavior. So stories is a technique. It's something you do. It's behavioral. It should involve conversation. You should be moving your lips when you're doing stories. If you find yourself typing, you may have missed the whole concept.